Explain like I'm 5. How was Vietnam able to defeat the US in the Vietnam War? Have you seen Home Alone? In that, Kevin, Vietnam, is physically greatly outmatched by the wet bandits, the US. In a fair fight, they'd win. However, Kevin knows his home a lot better than they do and uses it to his advantage. He uses a lot of creative thinking to slowly injure and tire out the wet bandits. They're extremely overconfident, so they don't take him seriously enough until it's too late, and they're already covered in tar and feathers and bruises. Now imagine there's a deleted scene where the wet bandits family stands outside for the whole film, shouting at them that there's no need for them to be there, and they've got involved in something they shouldn't have. To my limited knowledge, that's how Vietnam won. The US ripped the country apart and threw all kinds of weaponry and men at them. But the NVA and the VC early on used guerrilla tactics and extensive home advantage to stalemate them into quitting. There also was a great anti-war sentiment back in the US, with many people seeing it as a pointless waste of life and money. It's complicated. The whole thing was complicated. And while someone else will probably answer more directly, I'm going the cop-out route. While it was certainly a loss, it was less, we defeated the entire US military, and more, this was wildly unpopular socially and politically back home, so the US backed out when it became clear it was no longer worth the effort or lives lost. Still a major loss, obviously. I think people hear Vietnam defeated the US and think it was something it was not. Obviously, the war as a whole was a huge quagmire, but even saying Vietnam misses the fact that the US and other nations wasn't in there to fight Vietnam, but rather was aiding the anti-communist South Vietnam, while China and Russia were aiding the pro-communist North Vietnam. So it was essentially a proxy civil war. Sort of? It ended with the reunification of Vietnam because the country was temporarily two countries. Does that still count as a civil war? The entire thing was extremely complicated, exceptionally brutal, and very interesting, as well as completely tragic. It was a lot of shit that's hard to boil down into a few paragraphs, so you're honestly better off looking up something a little more in-depth. It's a very easy conflict to oversimplify. Here's a little bonus fact that's kind of chilling and depressing. The US lost over 50,000 soldiers during the Vietnam War. Currently, Russia is losing anywhere between 10,000 to 35,000 soldiers every single month in Ukraine. Hard to get solid numbers because casualties tend to lump dead and injured together. They've lost more people so far than any major conflict of any nation since World War II. War is fucking awful, if I may be so controversial. Vietnam never militarily beat the US. They lost every battle.
The US never tried to invade or conquer the North. They just tried to defend the South, with minor raids into the North. After a few years, the US population wanted out of the war. The draft was incredibly unpopular. So the US decided to attack the North and force them to the negotiation table. This was done by bombing Hanoi and mining Haiphong Harbor. This worked, and the North agreed to an armistice and signed the Paris Accords, ending the war. The US then left. After the US left, the North and South restarted the war, and the North quickly beat the South since we were no longer there. People often think that the North beat the US militarily, which is just not accurate.